Okay, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the February 1st, 2022 meeting of the Hatfield Select Board. As usual, I will begin tonight by reading our public participation policy. The Hatfield Select Board welcomes everyone to its meetings and all other public meetings of the town of Hatfield. All regular and special meetings of the boards and committees of the town of Hatfield shall be open to the public and shall conform to the open meeting law. Executive sessions are closed to the public and will be held only as prescribed by the statutes of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. It is important to recognize that the open meeting law affords the opportunity to listen to the proceedings, but not necessarily participate. During meetings of the Select Board, an attempt will be made to find a balance between hearing from members of the community and conducting the required business of the Hatfield Select Board. So as usual, the first item on the agenda tonight is public forum. We do have a lot of people here joining us online, which is terrific. If anyone is here for public forum, they're welcome to speak up now. We do not have anybody joining us in the room. Anybody? Okay, it doesn't look like we do. If you change your mind, let me know. And I we have a few announcements to make. We want to thank the Hatfield DPW for their work over the weekend. That was a long duration storm, a lot of wind. They did a really great job. Additionally, there was a water main break on a bitter cold night and day out on 5 and 10, and they, right, 5 and 10?
Yep.
Yeah, and they handled that as usual. So we just really want to thank them and recognize them for the work they do. I want to make sure everybody realizes excise bills went out. Those should have arrived in your mailbox this week. And real estate tax bills were actually due today. So just a reminder about that. And I just want to also acknowledge the Hatfield Council on Aging February and March newsletter went out. I absolutely love looking at this whenever it comes out, every other month. I know I'm sure that, most people of the appropriate age get this in their mailbox. But it's really full of so much information, both about what's going on at the Council on Aging and just some useful information and maybe links to things, information seniors may need to have. So I just always love to read this. Jerry and the other folks at the COA are doing a great job, and I just wanted to mention it's out. That's all I have for announcements. Anything?
No, it's February now. All right. Bring on the warm weather.
Day. Tomorrow's Groundhog Day. Anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. So we will go ahead and just get right into the agenda. The first item tonight is to approve some minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the Select Board meeting minutes from January 11th, 2022.
Second.
Motion has been made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Excuse me.
Okay. That was the only set. All right. All right. And the first order of posted business tonight is an update from the chair of our Board of Health, Bob Osley, on COVID-19. Hi, Bob.
He's here. That's Bob Wagner.
He's online.
Oh, he is. Oh,
No, he's online. He's right here.
There he is. Sorry.
Go ahead, Bob.
Okay, can you all hear me?
We can.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for asking me to stop by. I think I'll start out with the numbers, since everyone loves numbers. The past week, we actually saw some good news with the numbers. Our total numbers were down to 29 cases. Previous week was 60. Week before that, 54. Before that, 35. So we're seeing a trend coming down, but there are some kind of caveats to, seeing these numbers that we're getting on a weekly basis. They only include the numbers that are reported on the Maven system, which means they're only based on CPR tests, not based on home tests or rapid tests. In recent weeks, we have seen a dramatic increase in home tests, and both at home, at school, at workplaces. So it may be an actual underestimate of what the real number of active cases are. Yesterday, we received about a 9-page set of guidelines from DPH and DESE, which are now encouraging more home testing to pick up on mildly symptomatic cases and prevent adults from going to work and kids from going to school. So we may see fewer results coming through on the MAVEN system, but more that are actually happening on the ground with the home tests. One important thing to notice about the Omicron variant is there are a large number of asymptomatic people that have the positive test, and I think some of the numbers say up to 40%. So my only plea is, if you have symptoms, take them seriously. Don't put it off as just a cold, but if you have the opportunity to do a home test, that would be a quick way to get a result. If you have the time, a PCR would be something, but it takes days before the results are in. And if somebody is sick, nobody's going to want to have to stand in a line for hours to get that done. As far as other things going on January 20th, we received information data from DPH, which was encouraging. It basically was a listing of how many kids from age 5 to 19 have received at least a first dose of a vaccine. In Hatfield, our elementary school level kids are up to 70% who have at least received that first dose. So that's very encouraging, because that was the age group that we have concerns about being unprotected. So that's in the works. Great news is that the middle schoolers, 12 to 15, and also high school students are over 95% vaccinated, at least with one vaccine. So great news for Hatfield, and I have to commend the parents and school administrators and everybody who's been encouraging this. Overall state averages are only, for the elementary school, only 48%. So at 70, we're already looking very good. 81% and 80% on the middle school to high schoolers. I don't want to plow you under with too many numbers, but some of our neighboring towns aren't doing as well. Holyoke only has 47% of elementary level kids that are vaccinated, and 79 middle schoolers, and 95% of the high school. Northampton did a little bit better than us. They're 79% for the elementary school. So overall, Hatfield is doing well as far as doing everything to protect the kids. And that's an important thing. And as we all know, that just having a vaccine doesn't prevent you from getting the disease. You still have to follow through the mitigating efforts too. Let's see, as far as schools, I gave you the numbers from the previous week. This past week, we have had a bit of a cluster of cases in the high school, in spite of the high vaccination rate, and a lot of them were related to a particular cluster on a sports team. The school administrator, nurse, AD got together and came up with a plan to, with that many kids sick, particularly from a small cohort, decided to put a hold on sports until things can be reassessed. But again, that was their decision. I wholeheartedly supported that approach. And as with anything that we've dealt with through this pandemic, it's going to be a wait and see. My hope is the outbreak will settle down and kids can get back to playing sports and participating in the activities that really enrich their lives. As far as other things related to Board of Health, we have had 3 vaccination clinics so far. First one, I think in the first week of December, was a clinic for those 5 to 11-year-olds to get them inoculated initially. And that was followed up on the 27th of December during the school break for their second dose. And just last week, we had a 12-year-old to adult vaccination clinic. Each one of these were pretty successful. We had 25 people signing up on each one of these. So there was still a need and a desire to have vaccinations and have it done locally. I think people like that, not to have to run to another town, make appointments for days down the road. And I do want to thank the HES administration, the school nurse, and the staff that went above and beyond to help make these successful. And I also want to thank Liz Kugler, who spearheaded arranging a lot of these too. As you might have known, last week, DESE and DPH extended the mask mandate for kids and staff in school until the 28th of February. And at that time, they will reassess the need to continue or be able to end the mask mandate. Hatfield has had an indoor mask mandate, and it is in effect through March 1st. Prior to that time, though, the Board of Health will be meeting to reassess the need for a continued mask mandate or whether or not to allow it to lapse. But that will all be based on the numbers, recommendations from the state and CDC. And one thing to keep in mind is there are no magic numbers as to when we can get rid of a lot of these protective measures. So it's a lot of factors that, have to be taken into account before any of these decisions are made. That's all I have for just updates regarding COVID and what's going on. So,
I do have a question.
Okay, Bob, thank you so much for coming in and giving that. That was very thorough. Obviously, the news about vaccination rates here in town is just totally fantastic. Especially the numbers for the young kids that you were giving out. That's really good news. And I mean, everybody's happy that the numbers are declining. I know you're going to want to see trends on that. And, the point you make about rapid tests, rapid tests are such a useful tool, and I think we're all really happy to have that available to us, but then there is the downside that it makes you a little bit unsure of the numbers. You mentioned something when you were talking about people's use of rapid tests, and you said the numbers are probably more like 40%. But can you clarify what you mean 40%?
What I said was the asymptomatic people who don't have any symptoms but have the disease is up to 40%. So a lot of people will, have mild symptoms, which are very easily written off as cold symptoms, but actually have a case of cold.
You're saying 40% of the population has it? Is that what you're saying? Or 40% of the people who test?
No, 40% of the population who have COVID
Are
can be
asymptomatic.
asymptomatic.
Right, okay. Okay, I just wanted to okay, I just wondered about that. But that's good, because then it affects positively our hospitalization rates and obviously our death rates, which is what we really want to see come down. I'm just curious, can you speak to the tracing that's been done through the Memorandum of Understanding? We had a lot of cases, and I'm curious, this was sort of our first bubble of big cases since we entered into the agreement with Northampton. So I'm just wondering if you could speak to how that worked out, when we needed it most.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what you're asking.
I'm asking how the Hatfield Board of Health is feeling about the Memorandum of Understanding with Northampton now that we did reach a point where the numbers were so high. Because as I understand it, we entered into the agreement so that if we had another spike, we had this resource available to us. So I'm curious how it worked when we had the spike.
Correct, yes. Yeah, and actually that's a very similar question that Brian asked me yesterday, and I responded to him. He had mentioned that there was some
Rumblings, Bob. Rumblings.
Misunderstandings or
There you go,
rumors or whatever
misunderstanding,
word you want to use about whether or not Northampton had stopped doing tracing. If I can find that note here, I can just read it off to how I responded. But
Yes.
basically,
But do you have another
I
one?
spoke
Do you
to
have another question?
Meredith O'Reilly, the director of the Northampton Board of Health yesterday.
Irish.
And she said when there was the overall area uptick, there were just such an overwhelming number of cases that it kind of stretched their staff capacity to a limit. And for a brief period of time, they were not able to get to all of the cases to do tracing. And I think she said there was between 75 and 80% for those few days that they were able to do. Since then, they're now back to 100% of the tracing. So what they're doing is trying to build in a little more flexible capacity to their staffing so that if there are larger outbreaks in the future, they'd have some flexibility to do that.
I would hope
As I
that
mentioned-
sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, let's hope we don't get to those numbers again. We've said that a bunch of times over the course of this, right? Where we've had spikes and we've thought maybe it was the last one. But I would assume though, Bob, that if there is this, if we experience another spike like that and we get to that same situation where Northampton doesn't have the resources to handle what's happening in all the communities that they've agreed to do this for, that our community, our Board of Health, would then step in and take that over for the duration of that spike. Because tracing is a really important tool in the stop of this.
Yep. Okay, and it was, I must say, it was an important tool and still is. All of the reports that I've been getting recently from DPH is that the direction that the monitoring is going is that tracing is going to be less and less important and less valuable as we go along and have more home testing. It's still an important tool, but it's, less and less a critical part.
I guess I'm curious though, how if 40% of people that have Omicron are asymptomatic, so that they may not even think they need to take a home test. But if they got a phone call, if I got a phone call, I was asymptomatic, but I got a phone call that I had been in contact with, say, Marlene, who has just tested positive, I think that tracing becomes more important during a time when so many cases are asymptomatic, because people may not otherwise have any idea, and then an asymptomatic person, of course, could be out spreading it. So, I mean, that's not for you. That's an observation on my part. Particularly if what you're saying is true about the high numbers of asymptomatic cases.
Yeah, no, it's frightening knowing that anybody you come in contact with in a store or the post office or anywhere else can be carrying an active virus.
But that kind of contact doesn't really reach the level, right?
As far as Northampton is concerned, the director is addressing that. It, kind of caught them by surprise too, and they are working to increase their capacity and have some flexibility to pull in more tracers if the numbers go back up.
But that kind of, can I just clarify something, Bob? Because what you just said about passing someone in the grocery store, at the door, at the post office, that type of contact doesn't really meet the criteria, right, for probable infection. Isn't it a lengthier time within a certain time, close contact within so many feet for a certain duration of time, not just walking by, right?
Yeah, doing a test after a brief encounter would be very misleading and more than likely negative.
Yeah.
Right, okay, but you just sort of said the opposite of that. Okay, so I'm sorry, but Brian, you had a question.
Bob, I had a question. First off, thank you for all the information. Appreciated, and I hope you're right that the spike has now peaked and is coming down, whether it's through the PCR test or the home test. My question is, and I'm not sure that you would necessarily have the answer to the whole question, but I guess basically what I want to know is, it appears that our district and a few others, from an athletic perspective, not counting the athletes who are current, we're taking a break this week, I get it. But it sounds like the criteria for attending a home basketball game in the well-ventilated and air-conditioned Sherry Webb Gymnasium is for families of the players and anybody in Hatfield who wants to go. But the opposing team cannot bring any fans. Was the Board of Health reached out to have that conversation, or was there anything in the recent DESI or DPH reports that came out? And the reason I'm asking is, as the parent of a former athlete, I would be very frustrated that only the home team could allow fans at any number they want, but the away team isn't given at least a number, whatever that number might be, four people per athlete or something like that, to be able to see them. So I'm wondering where the medical logic is that you can have as many people from one community there, but nobody from another community. So has the Board of Health been reached out to on that, or do you have a comment that you're able to speak to, or?
Yeah, I have the same sort of thoughts that you had, Brian, as well, about limiting the viewers just to the hometown, just to parents or family of team members. It kind of takes the equity out of intercollegiate sport, interscholastic sports.
Sure, especially if you're the parent of a senior, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, and again, these are decisions that are made by the school, the athletic director, and it's not something that a local board of health necessarily gets in the weeds with, because those are more administrative things.
But you can see, but you
For
just,
something that the Board of Health were to intervene in, I mean, our feelings would be no visitors, or it might be no games at all until, an outbreak or a cluster is cleared up. But to make those decisions on a school level, that's not in our bailiwick.
well, I would have to disagree with you. I'd have to disagree with you a little bit, because you guys had a mask mandate put into place before DESI did. So there is some historical data that the Board of Health does, can get involved. I'm not trying to put this on the Board of Health, by the way. I just wanted to ask the question from an equity perspective as to why can you have an unlimited number from the hometown of people go, but you can't have a single person from the visiting team go. It just doesn't seem fair. And like I said, if it wants to be limited to, I don't know, 50 people, then each team gets 25, or each player gets 4 people, whatever it is. I just didn't know if the Board of Health, given your role in the community, was reached out to by the school district, or if they're just going on this on their own. And it sounds like they're doing it on their own.
Yeah, no, that level of decision-making is not where the board would get bogged down in.
Okay.
Because there are a lot of organizations there, as you mentioned. There's DESI, there's DPH, there's even specifically the MIAA, Massachusetts
Athletic Association.
Athletic Association, or whatever. I mean, they don't even have that level of guidelines.
Well, so there you go. Hatfield's just making the unilateral decision to do it then, not based on anything in particular, right? I mean, the governor has it instituted like there were, months ago for limiting indoor access. So you've answered the question for me, and I appreciate it. I just am still a little confused as to how a decision's made. Like, Hatfield people can't spread it, but if you come from another town, you can. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. Thank you.
Wouldn't necessarily be a decision I would make either, but.
Okay, that's fine.
And I have to, just to add to that, I was contacted by somebody that I know from an out-of-town, who has an out-of-town players, and asked the same thing, because, well, there are some other districts limiting attendance, a lot aren't. And so they're welcoming Smith Academy parents to their gyms for basketball, and then they're not allowed to come to ours. And I definitely think it's causing some ill feeling. But in any case, okay, just understanding how that was made, I think, is what you were trying to get at.
Yeah, yes, and I'm still not sure what drives it, but that's okay. That's not, I guess, anything we can get an answer to tonight, so.
Ed,
No,
did you have any questions?
No, I'm all set. You guys covered everything, I think. You're
It
good.
was a very thorough report, Bob, and we do appreciate it very much. Thank you for coming in. Did you have anything else, or are you all set?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we'll have you in again soon, and these good trends will continue.
Well, it's a constantly moving target, ever changing.
For sure.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Thank you again, and I don't know if anyone else from the Board of Health is on here, but if they are, thank you, and if not, and they watch later, we thank them as well. Okay, topic 2 is, thank you, Bob. Topic 2 is we have the Open Space Committee. They're actually joining us here in person tonight. So we have Mark Gillott, Rich Abbott, Robert Wagner, and this is to speak to the Select Board regarding Jericho Road.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Hello.
thanks for coming in. Thanks for being here in person.
Sure. I'm just going to introduce what the Open Space Committee is coming here to do, and not get into the particulars, and I'm going to leave it to Bob to kind of answer questions and describe what the project in detail is. But as you mentioned, there is a parcel of property on Jericho Road that's been for sale for some time. And it could provide a number of different opportunities for the town for open space, recreation, farmland protection, and affordable housing. And the reason we're here is because we think it might be a good opportunity for the town to be a facilitator for this property, and to make these things happen. And in order to start that process for the town to either purchase it or facilitate this, we would need an appraisal for this parcel. So we are coming to you to get your support and approval for the use of the Open Space Fund, which is another word for is the Fast Action Fund, which was established about 10 years ago. And it's for small pieces of projects like appraisals, surveys, other items that would that can't wait for town meeting approval or for full CPA applications. So in this case, we're asking for no more than $5,000 to have an appraisal done on this property. And that has been reviewed as well by the CPC. At least they're aware of it. And that fund presently is funded at around $11,000. So we'd be asking for $5,000. I'm going to
Can
turn
I
it.
just ask you to clarify? You said so this proposal would not go before town meeting?
It would.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
It just is, it's a mechanism to fund the appraisal prior to a town meeting. Okay, I
Exactly,
just
yes.
wanted-
So we're not asking for approval of the project.
Right, just the appraisal.
But we want you to understand what the project is. So I'm going to turn it over to Bob to describe the particulars of this project, and then hopefully the board can vote their approval or not on the request for funding for the appraisal.
Bob, thank you, Mark. In your presentation or in your conversation, could you, if you weren't planning on it, could you explain exactly where Jericho Road is so people would understand
Sure.
the proximity?
Yeah, so just to pick up on one of the things that Mark said, for the benefit of the board, the fast action account, if you will, was created by town meeting, and it is CPA funding that was set aside specifically for these kinds of quick requirements, a survey or title search, in this case an appraisal. So this property is on Jericho Road, which for those of you that are not aware of that area, it is a town road that comes off of Bridge Street. So as you're heading west, it would be on your left-hand side, and it drives down into the meadows there behind the homes on Bridge Street. This property is the first property, open property, that you come to before you make a big bend in Jericho Road. It's on the left-hand side of the road. Mark, it's a little over 20 acres, right? About 21 or 22 acres.
21 acres, yep.
And
8 of which is
Open.
Is flat and
Yeah.
open.
Yeah, so the 8 acres is farmed right now and has been farmed for many years. It's actually very, very good farmland, prime farmland designated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And then the rest of it then falls off rather steep slopes, wooded area down to a wetland area, and then borders the Mill River. So there's a lot of natural landscape there that's actually quite beautiful, a lot of wildlife habitat. Some of the people on Bridge Street bring kayaks out there. They make their way back there and they kayak on the Mill River from there. I'm sure that people have gone back there to fish and bird watch, so on. So this property provides the opportunity, as I think many in town know, the Community Preservation Act has 3 main categories of funding: historic preservation, which this would not fall under, open space / recreation, and community housing. And so what we're envisioning is that if the town were to buy this property, and we would be looking to get state grants to assist with that, the land grant, LAND, at least to initially help with purchasing the property, and perhaps then the agricultural preservation restriction program that the state has, to protect the actually about 6 acres of the farmland. There's
8 acres.
Oh, it's 8 acres of the, well, but after you take the 2, some of the acres, yeah, so it's about
6.4.
be 6.5 acres of farmland. And there are 2 road frontage house lots on this parcel. So the thought would be that they could be made available through an RFP process for affordable house lots or affordable housing. Perhaps through Habitat for Humanity would be a likely candidate to do that. But then also, and Mark and I have done a little bit of work, which I think is on the map that we provided you, just in terms of devising a trail with a little parking area so that you'd have a park, if you will, with a trail that could go down and access the area down along the Mill River, perhaps with a boardwalk trail. If any of you have been on the Sunderland River Trail on the Connecticut River, it'd be something similar to that, with landings where people could either fish or look out over the Mill River, bird watch, do photography, and then a very simple kayak canoe launch down there as well. All of that would be in the future in terms of the design of that and then the build out of all of that. But we can't do any of this unless we're able to secure the property up front. And we can't even begin to think about that unless we have an appraisal done. Because we can't, as a municipal purchase, we can't offer anything more than what it's worth from a valid appraisal. And also the land grant application to the state, which isn't due until July, requires an appraisal, that the grant request be supported by a recent appraisal. So hence the request to have the funding released from the action grant or action account to secure an appraisal on the property.
If I may, when I first read this, I was very impressed by what you have in here. I think this is fantastic. I think it's not only helps the town for the future, but ensures that that land can be used for generations to come. And I was very impressed by the way this is. So I think you guys must have put a lot of time and effort because it covers a lot of different areas and different grants that we can get from this. So I want to thank you guys for all the time and effort you put in this. And I also want to thank the family for coming up with possibly selling it to the town for the town use for generations to come. So I think this is neat.
Well, thank you, Ed. And yeah, Mark and I have spent a number of hours, days out on that property. Just to clarify, we have talked to the realtor on this property, and you know, there's no promises being made here. I mean, but there's at least an indication of interest to talk to the town, which I think is, you know, it could have been shut down right away. So that's a nice start.
I guess I would just echo Ed's sentiments and add that very graciously picked the coldest day of the year and invited me to go look at the property. It's beautiful back there. And what's interesting to me, and you know, you've done a good job of laying it out here, is how many boxes it checks. And then how many sources we may have, revenue sources, funding sources, to help bring this to fruition. And, you know, it says in here, hold on a second, I don't wear these all the time because they fog up. Interestingly, when you talk about the 2 single-family building lots, which is what you would be putting the request for proposals out to develop affordable housing, but single-family lots, through Habitat for Humanity, which is an organization with just a really great model and reputation, it says here who would find eligible Hatfield residents to partner in constructing 2 new affordable homes. Would it definitely be Hatfield residents?
Actually, there's Habitat has a whole process for how they identify folks that get involved in the projects, and I'm not sure that we can guarantee that they would be from Hatfield.
I mean, obviously that would be nice, but
Right.
you would want it to be the most worthy,
Right,
you know,
right.
candidates.
Well, and I
But-
think to a point that you and I talked about, Diana, that day we were out on the, through our chattering teeth. You know, yes, attracting and making this opportunity available, say, to someone who's currently renting in town, you know, and now has an opportunity to have their.
Well, we know that it's
their
really
first home.
hard for young
Right.
families to actually afford something
Right,
here.
and, but also, it might not be all that bad if a new family were to move in and bring.
That's what I mean about worthy,
And bring
yeah.
another group of kids to the school system as
Right.
well. So, but yeah, those are all, those are the kinds of details that are significantly down the road. I did have a chance to actually, on a not as cold a day, preview the property with the current executive director for our regional Habitat for Humanity, and they were very intrigued, and it fit what they're looking for in terms of property and ease of construction, which is important. And we know that our dear friend Sandy Belden, who no longer lives in town, was on the board for a long time, and so I'm sure that we could impose on Sandy at some point to come in and talk a little bit more about what Habitat's
Yeah,
all
I mean, I
about.
think that would be really great because
Yeah.
it's a really fascinating organization and how it, you know, the property remains affordable.
Right.
Moving forward. So there's stipulations, it's actually home ownership,
Right.
but there's stipulations on the deed about.
Exactly, and
yeah.
that will help us immensely in meeting our state mandate of 10% affordable, you know, affordable, certified affordable housing in town, because we're only at about 3% at this point.
Yeah, well, I guess that's what I mean when I say it checks a lot of boxes. Yeah.
It checks a lot of boxes. I mean, that's a perfect area for canoeing, and I've been up there on that river with rowboats and done fishing, and it's a nice area. With the housing. Now, would the housing actually offset the cost of some of this? How does that work? If there's 2 lots
Yeah,
and
so
the town
houses
buys
would,
it,
so the way Habitat, if it were Habitat, the way Habitat works is, they look for properties to be donated to them, because the cost of the land is typically that's the real obstacle to get into housing, and particularly new homes. We have yet to, aside from the minor project that we approved many years ago over at Capewalk, we have really not used our community housing dedicated funds from CPA, and that's now up to $286,000 just in the funding there. So the land grant will not necessarily pay for the land for housing, but that would be for the farmland, the open space, and the wooded wetland area. So I think what I would hope is that our contribution to this, from Hatfield funds, would be limited to the community housing, so a grant or a request from the community housing reserve, and that the rest of it we can get covered by other state grants.
I mean, when I first saw this, I was also thinking somehow if the footbridge went in to be part of all that whole, I mean,
Awfully close.
I don't know if that would be.
They're awfully close. Mark knows more about the property ownerships there, but
Yeah, it is very close. The only major piece there is the diocese, the Springfield Diocese Cemetery, and then they own the peninsula that goes beyond that, which, and from there, it's, you're almost next to the old mill.
I've never been back there. Maybe
Yeah.
Bob will invite me down when it gets a little warmer.
Yeah.
But my daughter has been kayaking back
Yeah.
there many times and loves it. I know she says it's really beautiful.
Kind of an unknown gem in Hatfield, really. I mean, it's under utilized or unknown, really, by most people, because there's no real public access. You have to have permission from a landowner to actually go out there, or just go out there by yourself. But the Open Space Committee's been trying for more than 10 years to try to get public access to the mill. This is all behind the dam, so it's like a huge, very slow meandering piece of the Mill River that's just full of wildlife, and is quite a
And it's worth pointing out that if this parcel, which is on the market, were to sell privately, in all likelihood, the farmland would be developed into housing lots as well. And, I think most of us agree that we need to preserve as much farmland as we can, particularly in an area that's so rich, and that particular piece, I guess, is from
yeah, I
what you
think
were telling me, Bob.
if someone were to decide to take on the cost of, say, putting in a subdivision road, they could get a number of homes
Yeah.
back there. The way it's being marketed right now is for a 6-unit development, utilizing the town's current open space development bylaw, which of course leaves some of that land open, but it also, as you said, it would eat up a lot of the and
As
it would-
the
and
owner
it would
just-
make it, and
Yeah.
it would make it, none of the accessibility that Mark is talking about would be available.
Has the owner agreed to wait until, if this,
No, it's on the market. It's on the market. And, they certainly know, their realtor, in fact, I updated them today that we were going to be meeting with you tonight. They understand that, municipal purchases grind slowly because it has to be transparent. We have to have these kinds of conversations. We need to go before town meeting. There's just, it's.
But the timing is such that you think you could get the appraisal done and be ready for what you may need to do by annual town meeting?
Yes, that would
Okay.
be our hope, yes.
Great. I don't have any more questions. Do you have any more?
No, I have no questions. I just have a comment that I always enjoy receiving information from the Open Space Committee and from Bob, Mark, and Rich, because it's always clear and concise and spells everything out. Right here, we got the email. It just spells it all out. The map was great, so thank you very much. And thank you for being here to answer any
Well, a lot of
questions,
thought went into it, and
Yeah.
the knowledge you bring of all of these
I mean,
various
it's-
state
yeah.
programs and different
Yep.
things that might help with the costs of all of this is really impressive.
Yep.
Great.
I'll make a motion to approve up to $5,000 to be spent from the Open Space Conservation Fund. Is that the right?
Yep.
Did I say that right?
Yep.
To be used for the appraisal of this property for this project.
I'll second that.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No, just thank you for all your time and effort. I know you put a lot of time and effort just by reading this. You must have spent an enormous amount of time, so thank you for everything you guys did on this.
So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to stick around for topic 4. But
Okay, make yourself comfortable. Okay, topic 3 is an application, sorry?
Sorry, I was saying bye to Rich.
An application for amendment, pledge of collateral for Mill River Ventures, Inc., alcohol license. And I do know that we're joined by Justin Colleen. Justin, is anyone else here with you on this agenda item?
Just me.
Just you, okay. Who's going to speak to this? Should it be Justin or you or Karen? Who handles the?
Just, well, so, I'll just state that, they have submitted an application to amend their license. And by amendment is that they're requesting the select board to approve a pledge of the license for collateral. This does come up from time to time, so they would be doing some financing and the license would be put up for collateral.
So just so townspeople know, this is the property at 4 Prospect Court, which was Double B's.
Correct.
And they're looking to get an all-alcoholic beverages. We actually approved the all-alcoholic beverages.
did.
And now this would
Right.
just allow them
Right. This
to
is
use
Mill.
that as collateral.
Right.
Because a liquor license has a value.
It does.
Right. So
It does.
for townspeople who may not understand that, they're worth money because they are, limited per community. I do not have any questions about this. Ed, do you have any questions?
No, we previously talked about this, but they had to redo something with the...
You had approved the license for Mill River Ventures, which was
Right.
formerly Double B's, and
We're modifying
you are
the existing
modifying.
license that
Correct.
we've already granted.
Correct.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
And I'm fine too, I'm just not sure how to word the motion. I mean, what are we?
Wouldn't we just,
It would be to authorize the license.
the
Modification?
pledge
Okay,
for
I'll make a
the
motion,
license.
I'll make a motion to modify the existing license to be, that's what I mean, to what?
as
As-
applied for.
As applied,
For a pledge of collateral.
right.
Pledge of
I understand why, I just
pledge-
didn't know if it had
Right.
an official title, I will make a motion to approve the modification as a pledge of collateral to the existing liquor license.
I'll second that.
How's
Mo-
that? Did I hit it?
That's
A motion's been made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Justin, thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Topic 4 is a Chapter 61A, notification of right of first refusal. This is on 137 North Hatfield Road. This is asking the town to accept the right of refusal and not exercise our option to acquire the property. So for
That is
townspeople, when a piece of land is put into Chapter 61A, which is it enjoys a reduced tax status because of its agricultural use. One of the stipulations is that if the property is going to be taken out of Chapter 61A, the town has a right of first refusal to purchase it before it goes on the market.
well said.
Yeah, nicely done.
Yes, that's from my way back
Right.
days here.
And so, when the town receives notification, the planning board and conservation assessors also receive the same notification. And generally, there is, we ask the Conservation Commission Planning Board for any comments, feedback. And both boards do not see any reason for the town to acquire the land.
Okay. And just so people know, this is property that is owned by James and Lori Motika, and it is located at, I said that before, but 137 North Hatfield Road, which would be across from Nellie Omasta's old house, right, where Geo Farm is now? Is that the property? That's exactly
yes,
the property.
And to the north of the Omasta landscaping site.
Right, okay.
Yep.
sort of before you get to where there's some multifamily homes and the railroad
It's actually the area
tracks.
between the
Right,
two.
okay.
Yep.
Okay.
May I just make a comment on this? Marlene, as you mentioned, the Planning Board and Conservation Commission get this for their input. I'd like to officially ask that we include the Ag Commission on any of these right of first refusal
certainly.
options because of the knowledge of that group, both of the soils as well as the farmers that might be using it or renting it or whatever. I was being on the Planning Board, I was aware of this one. And I concurred that this one would not meet the standard, if you will, of taking on the kind of action that we did on the Slawski farm just down the road a few years ago. So, but I'd like to officially ask the Ag Commission get on that list.
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Great.
Bob.
I'm all set. I don't have any questions. I know that this was a property that's generated some interest.
I have no problem.
yeah,
No
if-
question.
I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Everybody's in agreement on this, it sounds like. All the committees are in agreement, so.
So if the board would
Yeah, we just have to
Like
take a vote,
take a vote to release the property, not exercise
not
your
exercise our
to-
option.
So I'll make a motion not to exercise our option on North Hatfield, 137 North Hatfield Road, as presented to us in these documents.
Second.
A motion made in, oh, yes, I'm sorry. Sure.
Absolutely. It's just the first I've heard of it, and I mean, it could be used for public housing or affordable housing. I don't know, with the master plan committee coming up, has it been looked at as like a broader scope of, things to be the planning board thing? It's just interesting and a big fly up, and I just don't know. I obviously have only been watching for a few months now, but kind of semi-regularly. I appreciate everyone's doing, Diane and everyone up there. I really, your insights on all these different matters, it's crazy to watch. So just, I don't know if that sort of due diligence has been done on this. I was just curious on that.
Sorry, I just want to mention, this is Martin from the farm across the street, correct?
Oh, hi, yes, Martin Omasta. Hi,
right.
1 second here.
Should identify himself for the record.
Yeah, I live just directly across the street at Nellie Omasta's house. So.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you're not who I thought you were. I thought you were from Geo Farm.
No,
Nope, you're the
they're
next house.
neighbors.
You're Nellie's house.
Eric and Kate, I'm Nellie's grandson.
Oh,
Martin.
I loved her. She was really sweet.
She loved all of you. She was.
She was great. Okay, so I'm sorry. I'm glad I asked you to introduce yourself because I actually thought you were someone else
What is his
when you were
last name?
talking. Oh, Master.
No, thank you. I appreciate that
So he's,
opportunity.
you're
Oh, he
Nellie's
just said he was a
grandson,
grand-
right?
yeah.
Nellie's grandson?
Got
Okay.
it.
I think that that's part of what you're asking is part of why committees like Conservation and Planning Board get a chance to look at this because they're the boards in town that keep an eye on all of that sort of thing.
Awesome.
But it looks like Bob wants to speak to your question as well, Martin.
Yeah, so it's a good one, and I'm glad you brought it up. But so the right of first refusal on Chapter 61A is essentially designed to keep the bulk of the land as it once was, which would be farmland open space, if you will. There is an allowance for some development, as occurred on the Slawski property, but it can't be any more than, I think it's a third of what was originally proposed. No more than that can be used for something other than open space. So it'd be very difficult to use this property for, say, affordable housing as was suggested, because the idea is to really maintain it in open space. And the challenge here is that we have to meet the actual bona fide offer. And the bona fide offer on these 4 lots is very expensive. I mean, it's, I think between the 3 parcels or the 2 purchases that are anticipated and the bona fide offer that goes with them, it's like $525,000 or something like that.
Right, so the town would have to buy it at
You would have
that
to buy
price.
it at that price.
Right.
And given the amount of tillable land there and the fact that there's a lot of wet land there as well, it would be very difficult to then find a farmer who would be able to buy it from us. And I know that that land would not be eligible for the APR program because the Slawski property wasn't eligible for the APR program, so we wouldn't be getting that kind of state money. So that's what sort of worked against this parcel, unfortunately.
No, I appreciate all that background insight, sharing that. Makes total sense.
And we are going to, you're right, we're going to be revisiting the master plan, but that particular area of town was really focused on in the last master plan
Right.
as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it was. It was.
So,
But well, I'm glad to know that you're in the farmhouse and there at the property. So
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you for coming, Martin, and asking that
Answer
question.
Martin's question? Is he?
No, appreciate it. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
I'm going
Thanks
to
to-
join topic 9, but I'm hoping I can get home in time. Yeah.
At the rate we're going, you're going to have plenty of time, because
I'll chime
You could probably walk home.
we're not doing anything quickly tonight. I don't know if you noticed that, Bob. Okay. So topic 5 actually should be fairly quick. It is appointments and
Wait a minute,
resignations.
we didn't
Oh,
second.
I'm sorry.
I made a motion.
You made a motion. You seconded.
Also,
Pardon?
I think I interrupted your vote. If
Oh.
you need to
Yeah, he wanted to speak.
finalize
I'm easily distracted. Okay, so all those in favor?
Aye.
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 What's that? We're, oh,
Well, we could have, but he's.
yeah.
We need time to get home.
Yeah. So, okay, so now we're going to move on.
Here, okay.
Now we're going to move on to topic 5, which is appointments and resignations. And we have, we're being asked to make an appointment of Deborah Major to the local cultural
Did
council.
you carry out that vote?
Yes,
You did?
we
Oh,
just
you
voted.
Did vote.
Oh, okay, didn't
was
even hear.
unanimous.
Jeez,
Yep.
We did vote it.
sorry. Okay.
So I will make a motion to appoint Deborah.
Deborah, it's Deborah
Oh,
Major.
sorry.
Deborah Major, okay.
Major to the local cultural council.
Second.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We thank her for stepping up. We still have some openings, correct? On boards and committees?
We do, they're posted on the town's website.
I would encourage people to take a look at that, and if there's anything there that
Yeah,
might
actually,
interest them.
capital planning, an at-large seat
I
is
know,
still open.
because I'm on capital
Um,
planning, and we need somebody on there.
The master plan at-large seats, there's 3 of them. Letters of interest are coming in. That information is posted on the town's website and Facebook. And also the housing committee has,
Housing committee? Or
For
no?
years.
that was created, I don't know.
So not the housing authority?
That was,
No.
no, that was, the housing plan was a result of there was a housing plan done. And it was recommended that there be a housing committee. And this was about 7 years ago.
Yep.
okay.
To Bob's point, when he said something about we're at 3% of our affordable housing, and
Oh, I
in our
see.
community, we're supposed to be more in the 10% range is the goal. And Jeff Boyle was on the committee, and I think Pat Gahn, when this came out. I know Jeff was on it. And I think we're looking for 5 people
Correct.
in town.
We
And
have
the
one
only person
person.
who volunteered, and we're talking, I don't know if it was 7, but quite a few years ago anyways, was Stephanie Slish.
Stephanie, yeah.
But we'd like to have the committee
Mm-hmm.
to do things exactly in conjunction with open space and the housing authority and everybody. But
I
we
would just,
you know-
sorry.
No, that's okay.
I would just give a plug, though, for capital planning, because we're in the midst of that process right now. Capital planning is the group in town that takes a look at all of our capital purchases and how they're planned out for years to come. Anything from, smaller items like maybe, well, the freezer at the school or something like that, up to massive projects like updating the sewer plan or large sewer projects in town or buildings. And it's actually, I think it's really fascinating. I'm on it. It's basically a short, maybe 2 or 3 month in the first few months of every year. And then all of what we recommend gets turned over to the financial team heading into town meeting. So we're working on it right now, and we really could use another member. So if there's anybody out there interested in that planning process for how Hatfield moves forward with those capital projects, come and join us. It's actually very interesting. We're just giving Bob time to get home. I noticed on the news this morning, the town of Amherst actually had a story on the news looking for people to fill positions of the same nature. So, it's hard. People are busy, and it's hard to give time to things, but it is rewarding. So I hope people will consider doing that. Okay, topic 6 is your report, Marlene.
Okay, first item we have here is, hate to say it, snow and ice deficit. Expenses have incurred a budget deficit as of January 27th, and the amount of the deficit is $13,973.35. So pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 31D, I am recommending, and the DPW director and the accountant and I discussed this last week. So the recommendation is for the Select Board to vote to authorize the Department of Public Works to deficit spend.
And that figure is before the last snowstorm,
Yes.
which was a long duration storm.
May I?
Yes.
So I think I usually am the one, I shouldn't say that. I usually try to clarify this on a yearly basis because this is.
Can I interrupt
Yeah.
for 1 second? I just got a text from someone watching the meeting that they can't hear Marlene. Sorry, go ahead, Brian.
It's okay. I don't know.
Hook up.
I see a red and yellow light if that matters, John.
Mean anything, John?
So all I was going to say was this is an accounting process that every city and town in Massachusetts uses yearly.
It is.
Because we set an amount for snow and ice, knowing going in, honestly, that it's probably going to be exceeded, but we just don't know by what amount. Therefore, we don't want to put too much money in that budget and then, you know what I mean? So it's really an accounting thing. I'm
Winters
probably.
are unpredictable.
Right, and
as
I'm
we
probably
know.
making it
Yeah.
more confusing than it probably is if people are like, why are they doing it? But every year, this is a process for cities and towns to be able to have the unlimited resources
Right.
if it really, if winter's just horrible. So,
It's difficult to budget for, although
it's an unknown,
Phil did take the step of prepaying a bunch of
Yes.
road salt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is,
Before there was massive increases in price.
good
So
idea.
that
Yep.
insulated us a little bit
Right.
from super exorbitant winter costs this
Yep.
year.
so
the statute I referenced, I just wanted to add, is a provision that allows communities
yes,
to deficit
because
spend
nobody knows
their
exactly how much
budget
winter expenses
operations.
are going to be.
Right.
It's not a fixed cost.
We
That-
do
that's
this
the
every
thing.
year.
We do it
We
every year.
do.
We do this every year.
And my first year on the board, I was kind of like, what is that all about? But so,
Right.
it makes total sense, actually, in retrospect. So I will make a motion to approve deficit spending in the snow and ice fiscal year 2022 budget.
Correct.
Second.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Marlene.
You're welcome. All right, next item is just to
Is
bring.
her mic fixed now?
I'm sorry?
Her mic's been fine.
Oh,
on my
really?
stream, So I don't know
Oh,
what they're saying.
okay. Hopefully the person who texted me can hear now. Go ahead, sorry. Oh, she can hear now. Okay, we're good.
Okay. Just a very quick MassWorks grant update. As most people may know, and the board knows, that the town received a $2 million grant from the state for the Route 5 water and sewer infrastructure improvements project. And the next quarterly report that was due the end of December was submitted to MassWorks. I submitted a request for reimbursement totaling $384,180.34. So that is for construction and engineering costs, and the current balance of that grant is $694,800.18, and we must spend it by June 30th.
Oh,
Because we were given an extension of this grant. So I've had a conversation with the engineer, and he's pretty confident that we should be able to spend that money down. Then, of course, we have the $1.6 million borrowing that, that doesn't mean the project stops on June 30th. We will
Right.
still continue to finish with that project. It's just the $2 million of the $3.6 million
If the funds are encumbered,
project.
should be good.
let's hope for an early spring.
Yes.
May I ask, are you saying that after the 384 is paid, that would then leave a balance of 694?
That we have.
Or
to-
is the 384 part of that 694?
It is part of that.
So
It is, yes, it is part of, so those items.
so there'd be $310,000 we have to spend by June 1st.
Right, so if you look
Okay.
over to the left-hand column invoice date,
Oh, I didn't.
what has been submitted from October 7th through November 30th, that is the $384,000 that was submitted for reimbursement.
So then
So
there's
there
still
is
694. Yeah, it's not part of
That's what I'm
it.
saying,
What I meant
$694,000 is,
was, would we be deducting the 384 from the 694?
No.
The answer is
no,
no.
no, no.
That's, okay.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay. We're all on
No.
board now. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, well, keep us posted.
Yeah,
I will.
spend, right?
All right. The next item is and I'm not asking for the board to really take action on this tonight, but if you would wish to do that. And I did talk with both chiefs, Chief DeKoschak and Chief Flaherty. This is a memorandum of understanding with the State Department, with the Department of State Police and the town of Hatfield for police dispatching. This MOU has been in place for some time, and the last time it was updated, well, they recently updated in November 2020, and they are now getting around to renewing the MOU. And one item that Chief Flaherty had pointed out, and both chiefs, by the way, recommend approving the MOU. Chief Flaherty had referenced that the language regarding a board of overseers should be activated. It's something that hasn't been happening, and according to this letter, they would be, the board of overseers would be reactivated. So I just wanted to reference
And
that for
they
your
would
information.
oversee, I'm reading this. So they would, this says, provide and receive both solicited and unsolicited feedback regarding dispatch. So this would be a town committee that takes a look at our dispatch situation? Or, like how things are functioning? I see
Well,
Bob
I
is
see the
here.
chief joining us. So, Bob, could you explain, maybe would the Board of Overseers be representatives from other communities?
Yeah, so it
That's
ends
what
up being 2 fire representatives, 2 police representatives, and 2 EMS representatives out of the 14 communities that are dispatched out of Northampton Control.
Okay,
So it's not up to just us to do this.
right, it's not. It's,
Right.
yeah.
The big thing is that they really haven't been meeting for probably the better part of 3 to 4 years. It was pre-COVID, and some of the folks that were on the Board of Overseers have since retired. So the whole group kind of be good to get it back up and running as far as I'm concerned. I think nobody really oversees dispatch from our standpoint as the communities, and that's what that group is supposed to be there for.
But we don't have the control to reinvigorate that, or the authority, right? Or should we submit a request that it be?
I think it would help if a letter accompanies this MOU, should the board decide to
Right.
accept it, that you would support,
Okay,
support seeing that board be reactivated.
okay. And the scope of this is just in line with previous agreements?
Yes, the rest of it's all been there. There's no real other changes. Otherwise, it
Right.
would be just to
And I mean, it
try
is,
to prompt along now is to get that going. And, you know, the head of the communications division lives 3 doors down from me. So if I need to go and talk to him, I can.
former member of our department as well. And so, okay, I mean, I don't have obviously, I think we're lucky to have this service available to us. And in my limited experience, they do a really terrific job with everything. So I would be in favor of just approving this tonight if nothing in the scope of this has changed. And following it up with a letter asking that be reinvigorated would be the word, Bob, I guess.
No, I don't have a problem with this. I read it. It's a renewal. It's free to the town, and it's a important service for the town of Hatfield.
It's
So,
provided at no cost.
all right.
I'll make a motion to approve the MOU with the state police.
Second.
as presented in the paperwork.
Motion made and second. Any further discussion?
Thank you, Bob.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And we will include a letter requesting that group be
Absolutely, we'll do that.
reactivated. Thank you, Chief. Okay, Marlene, Comcast.
Yeah, just I wanted to bring the board up to speed. As you know, we engaged the services of Attorney William Solomon to assist the town with renewing the town's Comcast license. And John Novak and myself have met a couple of times with him. We'll be meeting again this week. And we have a meeting, actually it was rescheduled. We were supposed to meet last week, and it has been postponed to February 11th, a meeting with Comcast. And just to explain that at some point, that draft plan will be made available for review, and the town must have an open public meeting for comments. And in some towns, it's handled differently. It's the select board that has it as at a regular meeting, or a separate, just a meeting, on its own. Or John and I could set up and coordinate this meeting, and we would of course take comments from anybody who wants to speak, and then sit down again with Comcast, Attorney Solomon and Comcast. But ultimately, the plan would come to the select board for approval.
Would the public meeting that we hold include a representative from Comcast and/or Attorney Solomon?
Yes, they would be present. That's my understanding, John, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
they would
yeah,
both
I'm
be
fine
there.
then. However they or you guys want to do it
They
is
would
fine
both
with
be
me.
there. And I'd just like to say that John has been very helpful through these negotiations, and we're very lucky to have this man, because
Oh, I know.
he
We
know.
procures. Some towns, they have somebody else that does the procurement, and John understands the equipment. He brings so much more to the table. His knowledge and background, he's valuable.
Right, we agree.
We agree,
And the
and
fact that people are able to hear us agree and watch us agree is
Yeah.
also because of his hard work and dedication. He
Yep, for
does
sure.
dedicates a lot of time to making
does.
sure that townspeople can see these meetings. And that's more important than ever now that, when people may not want to come in person, and and they can watch them from the comfort of their home. And it's really nice that more and more people are able to see what's going on and how things work. Okay,
So that
thanks,
was
John.
just a quick
Yes.
update.
And thanks for that update.
Moving along, ARPA funds, was our meeting back, January 11th, the select board voted a number of projects to be funded from the distribution that the town received in ARPA funds. And we've received some additional requests, one from the town clerk, and the other is, and actually part of this other part of use of the funds is a discussion the board had with the fire chief regarding ambulance coverage. I know that he met with the finance committee last week and discussed his proposal, which is built into his budget for FY23, but had a conversation about, coverage, ambulance coverage. And right now, it would be beneficial to the department if there were 16 hours coverage between Friday and Sunday, and that would be approximately $35,000 to fund those hours. For
16 hours Saturday and 16 hours Sunday, or one each day? 8 each day, Bob?
It would fill out the evening shift on Friday and 16 hours on Saturday and 16 hours on Sunday.
Okay. So that's
That's an extra 40 hours
it is
of coverage
actually,
a
yeah.
week.
Correct.
Bob, that $35,000 would be for the remainder of the fiscal year, correct?
That is correct. That number was started as of this coming Friday through the end of June.
Okay. And so 2 requests
Yep.
for the board to consider. Funding the ambulance coverage using ARPA funds, and the town clerk has submitted a request to install 2 databases. Would be used for dog licensing and for boards and committees. She currently uses either Excel or Access for those programs.
But aren't these decisions being made as a financial team?
Well, I guess that's my question, if you would like to consider these requests with the finance committee as well.
I would. I mean, I think that we have to be really consistent here with how we're making these ARPA decisions. And
Okay, I can share with you that, as I said, the Finance Committee met with the fire chief last week. Finance Committee Chair Williams contacted me the next day and said that the Finance Committee would be submitting a letter that they would recommend to the board that the ARPA funds be used to fund the ambulance coverage for the remainder of the fiscal year.
I think keeping in mind that from an ambulance perspective, if the funding is approved tonight, that's also something where revenue comes in from that service.
that is-
So I mean, just
yeah.
so people keep that in mind.
That is
you know.
true.
So we'd be paying, of course, the salaries or for the hours, but if there's calls, then that revenue comes back in.
And
to the town.
did the finance committee give any indication about being supportive of maintaining that in the coming fiscal year? Because not yet, they didn't say anything about, I mean, we're not discussing that yet, I'm just,
He acknowledged that he knows that it is part of the chief's requested budget for '23, but he didn't indicate whether the finance committee would be supporting.
I mean, it would be premature, I guess, to have a discussion like
I
that. But I
know
guess,
the finance committee actually sees the need for this to continue after July or for July 1st. The chairman actually just said is that as long as we can find the funding, we think that this is the time. And actually the entire group of them all thought that this was a good plan. Obviously it just comes down to some finances, but I laid it out enough that they understood exactly what the need is and where the residents are ultimately losing out by not having this.
and this is one of those times where we get some information as board members about what is happening with the ambulance service. So then we have this discussion, but there's gaps in the information. So Bob, did you want to speak a little bit, gaps in the information that townspeople have? So do you want to speak a little bit about what has been happening with the ambulance lately? the call volume?
So we've been really, really busy overall. Obviously, some information went to you folks on the select board, and our EMS volume has gone up 8% in the last 2 years, and the fire volume has gone up about 18% in the same time period. Obviously, we had some ups and downs in 2020 with the beginning of COVID, but we're also on a track right now. Obviously, we just finished out the month of January, and we totaled out at 45 EMS calls and a total of 58 calls for the month of January. And looking back at any records that I can find, the EMS calls double the most amount that we've ever had in the entire time that I've been here. We typically average about 17. The highest I can ever see on record somewhere is about 22. So we shattered that for January, and I know a lot of people have asked, was it a lot to do with COVID-related calls? And it really wasn't. It was just people are calling the ambulance a lot more often. So the call for service is increased. I could tell you, as one of 2 paramedics on the department, almost every call that we are doing is at the ALS level at this point. So the volume is increasing, and we have less staffing to be able to do it because we are still running as a call department, and people just have other jobs and lives and things that are going on. So it's very hard to cover these calls. We lost a lot of revenue last year, just about 60 grand of calls that we couldn't cover.
Well, and when you can't cover a call, that's a resident waiting a long time for a response. So revenue aside, that's not something I, as a board member, want to see happening when people are making these calls to the ambulance.
I mean, there's a couple.
So
even on a good day, just because of the way our system is built currently, if we're not able to staff our ambulance with 2 people, even on a good day, it's typically going to be about a 10 to 12 minutes before Northampton would get here. They're pretty much they're not listed as our primary backup, but the private ambulance that's out of Northampton, essentially, they don't have any staff. So they're rarely sending a truck to us, which means it gets to Northampton. So by the time there's through 2 dispatch centers and they tone us the way that they're supposed to, the mutual aid ambulance isn't even on there responding to the town of Hatfield until about 5 minutes into the 911 call.
And our other responding departments that we rely on sometimes, Whately, I would assume South County, are probably experiencing the same problems we are with the difficulty with response.
Well, nobody else really is, because right now in Hampshire County, we are one of only 2 ambulance departments that are still a call volunteer. It is us in Granville for Hampshire County that don't run with full staffing. Everybody else is covered by somebody.
I think Granville,
or at least 16 to 20 hours a day.
I think Granville's in Hampden County.
I couldn't catch that.
I said, I think Granville's in Hampden County, but.
Well, dispatch out of Northampton Control, sorry.
Okay. Oh. So, I mean, the spike in January is concerning. It warrants some response. I would hope, and we want to make sure that response is happening and that the, people on the department aren't tapped, the same people going to all these calls, because we know that's unrealistic. But I would hope that we'll also take a look at this to see if it's a temporary spike or a trend as we head into the next budget cycle.
Yeah, I mean, that's the paperwork that I had sent you guys, and I also forwarded to the finance committee that this isn't, January, yes, this could very well be an anomaly that we're as high as we are, but it doesn't negate the fact that over the last 3 years, the call volume has gone up what it did. I mean, 358 calls for service just for EMS last year, where we're normally in the low 3s. That's just where it is right now, and that's where it's kind of been trending for the most part. It just keeps going up and up.
One a day.
And it's, that's what I was asked, was to show the trend, so I showed the trend, and that's basically where we're at right now. And it's with limited staff. I can tell you right now, it's essentially 4 to 5 of us that are doing all of the work.
Yeah.
If I may?
Yes.
I mean, first of all, I like this idea. It's a stopgap for issues that's happening right now. Second of all, it will generate funding, so it's not like we're spending all the money. Some of the money is going to come back. Third, finance has already gone through finance and they have approved it. And fourth, we can actually monitor this until May and determine if this is the anomaly, if it has to be maintained. And 5, over the last years, as far as I'm concerned, the town has expressed interest of having good ambulance service. They've funded paramedic equipment, they've funded a new ambulance, and the last thing anybody wants is to call for an ambulance and have to wait. So I don't have a problem approving this tonight using the funding that's available right now. That's just my 2 cents.
And I would agree, because we have word from the Finance Committee that they're in support of this. The other expenditure, although relatively small, I still think it needs to be discussed with the whole financial team. I mean, I don't want people to start bringing things to us individually and we start doing that. I think that the ARPA funds warrant discussion of the whole financial team. And so we have their approval. We didn't discuss it together, but on that, but I guess I would want to wait on the other request.
Well, the quote is good for another 4 or 5 months in reading,
Yeah.
So I mean, I think if finance can zip through this in the next couple of weeks and then we meet again in 2 weeks, we'll have an answer.
Right. Then that's on the dog license
Yes.
software. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I think we should probably make a motion on the ambulance.
I'll make the
I
motion.
said about 2 minutes ago, I was going to second it, but then we had the interruption, but.
The motion's out there?
No.
You did make, I didn't think you made a motion.
No, it wasn't official, but it was
Oh,
like all the
gotcha.
reasons why, so.
Okay.
Well, I'll make a motion to seek the 16-hour period on Friday, Saturday, well, it's Saturday and Sunday, the additional $35,000, which will come from our funding source over here, which is,
So you have the current balance there.
Yeah.
ARPA.
Yep. I'll second that.
I would just only add that it also includes 8 hours Friday evening. Is that right, Bob? Okay.
As presented.
okay.
Okay. Did you second it?
I did second. it.
Okay, so motion made and second. Any further discussion?
No.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And so do we need to table the one from the clerk's office or just take no action, Marlene?
I would,
Just take no action,
Yeah.
and I have a note here to copy that information to the send it to the Finance Committee for review
Yeah.
and discussion with
That's
the
fine,
Select
thank you.
Board.
Yep. We're just being consistent.
thank you, Bob.
Sure.
I'd like to thank the select board for approving this. This is going to help the department and the residents immensely over the next few months, and we'll give a chance to really show some data of
Yeah,
what we're able to cover by having that extra folks in.
you're
And
welcome.
you have staff
Important.
available to fill those?
I do have some folks. It may not be this weekend because of such a short notice, but I already have a flyer ready to go. I've already had, not that we've advertised it, but we take applications on a rolling basis. I have an interview actually with somebody on Thursday, and there's a few more. But definitely some of the folks from internal have already expressed that they're willing to take shifts. And I don't see a problem filling most of this because there's a lot of basics. And I've already got a handful of medics that have expressed some interest. I talked to Deputy Gahn, and he's going to pass it on to some of his coworkers. And this is what EMS is about, is a lot of per diem type of coverage, and that's what they're used to. So I think we'll be in pretty good shape.
Well, and it's, we've said it before, it's a good chance to say it again. If you're out there and you happen to watch this meeting and you have any interest in coming on as an EMT, if you're trained, terrific. If you're not, there's opportunity for that, right, through the department. So I would encourage anyone with any interest in that to consider that and to reach out to Chief Flaherty.
We'll take anybody. We could train them.
There you go. You want to hang on for the next topic as well?
Just going to ask him if he'd
About
like
the
to stick
radios?
around.
Oh, yeah, the radio.
So Bob, this is the equipment that you'd like the board to
It's on the last.
Yeah.
approve
no, I know.
transferring to the DPW and school? These are your old radios, right?
Correct. So as you see in the letter, we have put into place, into service all of our new communications equipment, or at least the portables and the mobiles are getting installed actually starting tomorrow. So we should have that wrapped up pretty soon, but we have all the old portables, and as opposed to declaring them surplus because they really hold not much value to go anywhere just because of the technology. I reached out to Garrett and he says that he could definitely use them, especially when they're doing road jobs. And I had already spoken to the school department and I started venturing to get the grant and the town funding. So they have a youth farm as well to be able to have these radios around the school instead of having to use, personal cell phones or other means of communication within the district. So I felt that, this was a good thing that I could try to help out 2 other departments, and it saves them money down the road. They don't really have to spend any money of trying to purchase any of this equipment. They just have to worry about, the minimal maintenance and upkeep, which is really not much, maybe some batteries every 3 to 5 years.
So these radios were obsolete in terms of communicating outside of town?
Yes, they're no longer, everything in our world as far as emergency services is starting to go into the realm of digital capability.
But they
And
can
these
still
don't-
use them internally?
Correct. So these are great for, a point-to-point communication, talking within the school. They're not going to be talking to Northampton Control or to any other towns. These are just, it's basically a walkie-talkie,
Right.
but at a little bit of a higher level.
Oh, that'll be nice. Because, there isn't great cell coverage sometimes in the school, so that's great.
Good
I mean,
idea.
it's always good to repurpose things and,
Yeah, and the school already has a few radios that they had purchased, and I know Chief DeKoschak, I think, had given them a couple,
Right.
maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yep.
So this would just add to their stockpile, and it's the same style of radios that they would be getting. So they're aware, they have their own channels, so this is just giving them the equipment to help them out a little bit.
well, and obviously for the DPW, that just makes such sense too, so.
Correct. I believe they
Okay.
don't have any portables. All of their radios are things that are in their vehicles, so.
And we do need to vote to authorize that transfer of equipment.
I'll make a motion to transfer I'll call it obsolete only from a fire department perspective. Transfer the fire department obsolete equipment, which is still usable locally, to the DPW and the schools. And thank Chief Flaherty for lining all that up.
Yeah, second that, thank you.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, Marlene, topic 7, memorandum of understanding
We're going
between.
to table that.
Yes, I'd like to ask the
Or
board to
hold on.
table this or defer it to a future meeting.
Okay.
I've been in communication with Kathy Gow, museum curator, and I understand the Historical Society hasn't had a chance to review those changes
Okay.
in the MOU.
Okay, we can take it up at whenever they get it back to us, right? Okay. Topic 8, Marlene, White Rock Trail, town property on Mountain Road update. Bob Wagner did make it home. I see him joining us.
So this piece of property, I don't know if the board recalls, and it was probably over a year ago. There are some no trespassing signs.
Yes, I remember this.
What we believe to be town-owned property. And so there's been some discussion back and forth with the abutting owner, and there was there appeared to be some agreement or willingness to share the cost of having a survey done. And for probably 6 months now, our emails and calls have just gone unanswered. And I'm recommending, so we do have a surveyor that can survey the property. I don't know about right now, but
Right.
anyway,
We just need this
I'd
done
like
once and
to-
for all is what
So,
the bottom
yeah.
line is.
I'd like to move forward with it, and if
This-
we do end up getting a response and they're willing to share that
Great.
cost, great. But at this point, and I'm prepared to take it out of the town administrator or select board's operating budget. There's sufficient funds there to cover the cost of that survey. But I would just like the select board to know that several attempts have been made, and I'd like to get this resolved.
I'll make a motion to approve the finances to get the survey of the property done on Mountain Road.
Second,
A motion made and second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Marlene.
All right, you're welcome. Next item under old business is the host community agreement between the town and Tree Works LLC. Previous meeting, the owners requested the town waive the impact fee. And so, some research was done, consulted with town council, and, communication was provided by Attorney Mullen, and you have received a copy of that. Just looking at some research that I did with some surrounding communities. I think many people know that Northampton voted to waive the fee. But it wasn't, so they did collect fees in fiscal year 19, fiscal year 20, and there was a partial collection in fiscal year 21. And so for reasons that, the city of Northampton feels that they have had sufficient experience with the marijuana establishments, and they were comfortable with, going forward with a new approach. And it was agreed to waive that impact fee. Other communities in the area, Hadley currently has 2 agreements, and they and these are relatively new agreements. They have not been approached to waive the impact fee, and both agreements have contents for providing funds to the town. And Sunderland was just executing an agreement when I spoke with them, and they have an impact fee clause in that agreement as well.
Okay. So, if I may, Diana. So Northampton has collected over $2 million
Yes.
Almost
in
3.
3 years. And good for them. And it says there's no impact fee unless there's a certain impact related to a particular cannabis business.
Yes,
So it's
thank
sort
you.
of
That
as they
is
go.
important to mention, yes.
So I don't certainly fault the Hatfield business for coming forward and asking the question. I mean, that's fine. But we did enter into a 5-year contract with a 3% per year agreement to be paid to the town of Hatfield for hosting and having that particular business here. So we haven't received anything yet, just due to the time frame of the business getting up and running and off the ground, which was no fault of Hatfield's. That was all the licensing and everything with the state. So I am not inclined to waive or reduce the fee currently this year. I mean, I don't want to say that I wouldn't personally revisit it in the future, but I think for year 1 where we haven't gotten anything from a financial perspective yet, or seen how things have played out with Tree Works, I'm not inclined to support a reduction. So I guess I just wanted to go on record saying that. It was a known fee. It's not something we hit a business with unbeknownst to them. This was part of the negotiation to come here. So it was a known expense, and I consider it part of the cost of doing business. So that's all I wanted to say.
My understanding too is that the impact fee could be used for educational purposes for the schools. Is that correct?
I thought that was a separate clause. I believe that was a
Well, I
separate
think it goes into
clause
our
in their
budget.
agreement.
We
Yeah, I
could
mean,
use
I
it
don't
for.
think to do it.
Right.
The discussion is about what we're going to use it for, but that,
The impact
it
fee
was
would
a
just go to the general
negotiated
fund.
agreement, and, I was clear about how I felt last time, that I thought that asking at this point before any revenue has come into the town on it was premature, and that this is part of doing business as a cannabis operation in the
state.
Commonwealth. So
Yeah.
I I think it's, I understand why they asked. I'm willing to revisit it as you are at various junctures in the future, whatever those may be. But I'm not inclined to forego that fee right now.
I think the consensus of the board is we're not inclined to do this yet because we negotiated a contract in good faith, number one, with the idea that we would be getting the 3%. And in my mind, I was thinking some of that money, not that we've agreed to anything on what we can spend it on, but I thought it could be used for educational purposes at the schools on drug and alcohol addiction and prevention and all that stuff. So I'm not inclined to move ahead with saying no, not after we've negotiated a contract in good faith.
Hey, and could I say one more thing? My own personal opinion, I know I don't do that very often, but I thought I'd make an exception tonight. I just wanted to say that I think that the state in the beginning of this entire process, I believe, to have communities be a little more willing to accept cannabis operations, called that fee a community impact fee. And the reality is it's a doing business in a community fee is really what it is. I mean, it certainly impacted certain communities. We all drove down Route 5 in Northampton when they first opened around the Rotary. I mean, forget it, right? A couple of years ago. So there was no doubt an impact there. But really, I think the fee should have been referred, in retrospect, should have been referred to the cost of doing business fee in a community, the cannabis cost of doing business fee.
I think it was designed to encourage the industry to be able to find a home. So it was to encourage communities to welcome this industry, and not all communities do. Hatfield chose to welcome it. It's easy for cannabis businesses to do business here. We as a board have been really great about working with our cannabis partners in town. So I think you're right. I'm just sort of trying to say that I think the spirit of what they were intending is.
And I agree, Diana. I just think that some businesses are probably saying, well, we haven't seen much of a impact on, the business hasn't created an impact on particular communities and particular locations, which is probably what they're referring to. But that, to me, that's not really, it's what the title is, it's what it's called, but that's not really what it is. To me, it's a doing business, a cannabis business fee.
I think it's noteworthy that it was also presented to us that most communities are doing away with these, which was disingenuous.
Yeah, after Marlene doing the research.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
I think it was sort of indicated that's widespread and
yeah,
I'm not
it's
so
really
sure
not
it's
widespread. So
Exactly.
thank you for doing the background research.
I'd just like to say that in the agreement, and I don't think you have a copy in front of you, but on page 5, there is a clause that, letter D, the company agrees to provide no less than 150 person hours per year to be furnished by the facilities management employees to participate in community meetings, community service activities approved by the Board of Selectmen of the municipality, including but not limited to municipality-sponsored educational programs on public health and drug abuse prevention. And I recall at the time this agreement was negotiated, the idea of drug prevention presentations would be at the school.
Right, so not
However-
necessarily the funding going there, but the community hours going there.
So noting that, there is also a clause that it's up to the town to determine how to spend that 3%. And you could use it for,
So have they made an effort to move forward on those hours?
I don't know. But I can find out.
Okay, that would be good. Okay, well, that's all of our agenda.
Did Bob want to say something?
Oh, I'm sorry, Bob,
Well, just-
you said you were going to go home and hope to be back on. Did you want to, we talked about the trail up at White Rock.
Actually, I wanted to join again because of that last topic, and I completely agree and concur with your opinions and your what seems to be your decision on this. I think that just if I may, in selling, if you will, the bylaws to endorse it or to support marijuana establishments, it was made pretty clear to the townspeople at town meeting and various hearings that, you know, there was opportunity here for the town through the host agreements, and if it's a retail entity, through the local tax, to find another source of revenue. And there's no question that that was probably on people's minds, I would imagine, when they were voting on this. And we certainly know in reviewing these applications that this kind of income stream is presented by the applicants as one reason for us to approve their request when they come before the planning board. So
Good point.
Northampton, in their altruism, has decided to waive that fee, but it should be noted that they only did it a few years afterwards and after raising an awful lot of money before they went so far as to say, okay, we'll waive them. So I completely agree with your discussion and your decision. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay. Karen, anything? Thank you very much for everything.
Yes.
Marlene, thank you. John, thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Was there anything else, Marlene?
I do not have anything else.
Unanticipated stuff?
That concludes my topics.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Oh,
I'll second.
wow.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, John.
Thank you. That was a lot to get done in a couple hours.